So this is one of those invalid Christian arguments that they think gives them some level of credibility. So what am I talking about? So in this whole soliloquy, what my guy is expressing is the idea of the argument liar, lunatic, or Lord. And this was a proposition that I heard about maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, where a Christian theologian tried to present the argument that Jesus must either be a liar, must be a lunatic, or must be Lord. Now, because they claim that the Bible is backed up by eyewitness accounts and that there are extra biblical people like Tacitus and Pliny who wrote about him, that he could not have been a liar. Now, we know that the Bible is not written based on eyewitness account, that no eyewitness actually wrote anything, that everything is secondhand, third hand, fourth hand, fifth hand, that we have no handwritten eyewitness accounts of the eyewitnesses, nor of Jesus, nor of Peter, nor of Matthew, nor Mark, that all of the Bible was written, all of the Gospels was written anonymously, and then later on people added the names with Irenaeus in 120 CE. So we know that it's not an eyewitness account. That's first. So is it a liar? Is it not? Is it made up? Well, you can't prove it. And Pliny and Tacitus and Josephus, they're just writing about what people believe. They're not writing about the personage of Jesus as if they know him or validating him as the biblical version to which people believe in. So, is he a liar? Possibly. Is it truth? Most likely not. Because none of the miracles can be validated. None of the Son of God claim can be validated. None of those things can be truly and ever validated. So is he a liar? Is he telling the truth? Most likely, I'm going to lean on liar, and I'm going to tell you why at the end, because there's one aspect that they're missing in this whole storyline. The second, is he a lunatic? Well, to a certain degree, possibly could be a lunatic. Very well known that at this time frame, many people claimed to be the Messiah at each Passover while they were under Roman control. And during this time frame, many were killed and murdered or jailed for making the claim of being the Jewish Messiah and had the purpose of overthrowing the Roman government. Now, according to this story, Jesus wasn't trying to overthrow the Roman government physically, but it was more of an ethereal type of overthrow. But even to put himself in that position where he know that the end result is either jail or death, you can somewhat classify this as a lunatic of a person, but I would more likely classify it as a person who is a zealot about their beliefs, and sometimes their attitudes and the things that they do may seem to be on the side of a lunatic, but it's just a zealous person. If we see people today like David Koresh, Jim Jones, what do we call them? We call them cult leaders. We may often call them lunatics as well. Lord. So the conclusion is that since he cannot be a liar, he cannot be a lunatic, then everything in the Bible must be true about Jesus, so therefore Jesus is Lord. And that's how they end their argument. Except they're missing one very vital aspect of something that we can identify and see that has happened in history over and over again and still happens today. And that is legend. Liar, lunatic, Lord, or legend. Was there a historical person who may have claimed to be the Messiah during the early first century, whose name was Yeshua, which was an incredibly popular name? It's more probable that happened. Josephus talks about 4 to 12 different Yeshuas who claimed to be the Messiah during the early first century. So is it possible that happened? Who also has a father named Joseph, very popular name, Joseph, in the early first century. Very likely, very possible that there was such a person claiming to be the Jewish Messiah. Now, does that make anything that happened in the Bible true? No, it does not. But what happens when a person who is charismatic, a person who galvanizes people, creates an cult? What happens to them quite often? Quite often, as their story goes over the decades and into the centuries, and in this case, the millennials, they become legend. Heracles, or better known as Hercules, was most likely a person who was the king of Argos and who did great things for his people. And then he got legendized into becoming the demigod who was born from Zeus and a mortal mom. And he rose up into the heavens after completing his 12 trials and doing the things that he did. He became legend. We call it myth. Was a person like Achilles a great warrior? Was he legendized to believe that no one had hurt him in battle, and then finally until somebody clipped him on his ankles that he then died, because now he's weakened and he's not a great warrior? If you've never had an Achilles tear, you may not understand how it incapacitates you from being able to be a warrior or anything once you tear your Achilles when it comes to physical activities. So, could he have been legendized? Just as David in the Bible, legendized. Could possibly be a person, we don't know. But legendized. Solomon, legendized. Whether we're looking at people like Shango. Shango more than likely was a great king in the area that we now call Nigeria, and then became legend, the same with Eshu and others. We can even see it in our more modern times. George Washington was said to have chopped down a cherry tree, and then I cannot tell a lie, I didn't chop down that tree. And then he became legendized because of the political propaganda of that story that was created. Not a true story, but based on a real person, but a popularized propaganda story, and it has become legendized that he was an honest man. Legends. So most likely, Jesus, if he was a real historical person, was then legendized into becoming what the Bible says. This is why, as each book is written later and later and later and later, starting with Mark, and then Matthew and Luke, and then John, more and more miracles seem to happen as the books are written later. And then as Paul legendized even more, even though Paul doesn't talk about the miracles as much, but he becomes legend. And isn't it interesting? Paul's letters, which are deemed to be older than the actual Gospels, doesn't say anything about the miracles really. But all these miracles happen in the Gospels that are written after Paul writes at least 7 of his letters that can actually be attributed to an individual person that could possibly be Paul. Jesus is a legend, and that's it. But y'all have a great day. Remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.